had no bread. Do you know what she said?
Let them eat cake.
Who took the bomb?
We're getting screwed, man. Every time we turn around, we're getting screwed. Oh, the revolution's going to be through podcasting for sure. That's the only way we talk. It's the little guys that take the brunt of everything. It's got to stop. Peasants, man. We're just peasants. Every one of us. You watch those old movies, you see the peasants in the background with the kings and queens walking around. We're those people. We're those people. Good morning, peasants. Welcome to another episode of The Peasant's Perspective. I'm so glad to have you guys here with me today. It is an early morning, like every morning, and I had a little trouble with the coffee maker this morning. So here in Ron's office, there's a really nice Thermador coffee maker. It's one of the ones that like sits into the cabinet like a microwave. You know, it's like got its own little spot in the cabinet. Really fancy. Only makes coffee. Can make other stuff, but you got to put milk in there and stuff like that. Anyways, the door wouldn't close. It's like a little magnetic latch. I cleaned out the tray. What a nightmare. Anyway, so I spent 10 minutes messing with the door. And probably after this, I'm going to have to go mess with it some more. So anyways, it's been a great morning. Anyways, yes, good morning, Debbie B. Good morning, Pony Boy. Of course, everybody. Welcome, welcome. So glad to have you guys here today. Okay, so let's jump into it a little bit. I have a really funny opening, and I kind of want to let more people roll in before I do it. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump ahead to Elon Musk, talking about what he sees in the future. Now, a couple things with Elon Musk. I do believe his heart is in the right place, right? I think Donald Trump likes him. I think he was instrumental in extending free speech on this planet with his purchase of X. I think that he's put a lot of money where his mouth is when it comes to his political involvement and stuff like that. I think he's super transparent with what he's doing, unlike George Soros, right, who isn't really transparent about what his goals and objectives are with his money. And one of the things Elon Musk said a couple of weeks ago was the government couldn't be fixed. Well, he had also said prior to that the only way to fix the problem in the country is to grow out of it. We've got to create more money, more wealth, and the obvious way to do it is AI and robotics. So this is Elon Musk talking about the future of robotics and where he sees that market going.
Well, Optimus is intended to be a fully functional humanoid robot, and it'll be capable of doing a wide range of tasks. You can just ask it to walk your dog, take care of your house, babysit the kids, teach the kids, cook dinner, play the piano. So it's it's a generalized humanoid robot. I think everyone will want one, because why not? You know. So I think there'll be at least one for every person, and then a whole bunch more in industry making things. So I think there'll be, my guess is 20 billion-ish.
20 billion humanoid robots out there.
Well, Optimus is
20
to be
billion
fully functional
humanoid robots out there. It's like a lot of robots. I don't know how many cell phones there are, but it's probably close to that number. Could even be less. Well, probably more given the lifetime of cell phones, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Anyways, pretty interesting. Whole new economy. When you think about, for example, the 1990s and how the economy kind of stagnated at the end of the 90s, and there was the tech boom, right? The dot-com bubble. Well, the dot-com bubble ended up being kind of a fool's gold, but you know what was a real bubble that has lasted till this day? Cell phones. Right? Which came out right then. Don't invest in pets.com. Invest in Samsung and Nokia and LP and Apple, right? Those would have been your tech companies. So having a robot to do the dishes, walk the dog, stuff like that, I kind of look at that and I think, isn't that like part of the joy of being human is like walking the dog, teaching your kids? I don't know. I want a robot to do the dishes and do the laundry. I don't want it to teach my kids or walk the dog. I don't know. At that point, isn't the dog just a vanity thing? I mean, I guess maybe that is what it is for a lot of people. Okay, so that was my little AI bit for today with Elon Musk. Now we're going to take a flashback back to when Donald Trump won the 2020 election. Now, for me, this will always be very special because I was in prison, and I got special permission from the guard to stay up late and watch the election results. So myself and two other inmates that were interested stayed up. I was past midnight. It was 1, 2 in the morning. It was pretty late in the morning, pretty early in the morning that we stayed up to watch the election. So I remember when this happened. Now, I wasn't listening to MSNBC. I was watching Fox and Newsmax mostly, but we were bouncing around between all the channels. And I did hear this clip the next day, and it made me laugh so hard then. And it's funny because Jen Psaki, who is commentating on MSNBC as she's doing this, kind of predicted things pretty good as far as their perspective. So let's take a listen to Jen Psaki, and some of you are going to laugh. I thought this was borderline a comedy routine.
Still a long way for her to go.
But they have to jump. Steve Kornacki, I just have to jump in. And you've been predicting this. We've been waiting for it. And we do have some breaking news from the decision desk. NBC News can now project that Donald Trump has won the state of Wisconsin, which means he is the winner of this race and will return to the White House as the country's 47th president. And for so many of you watching,
it brings me back so many memories. I remember running back into my dorm where the other J6er had gone to bed, and I took my coat, and this is like 2 in the morning, and I threw it at him. I'm like, we're going home.
Watching right now, that news is, to say the least, a lot to digest. I understand that personally. After he lost 4 years ago, he refused to accept the outcome and incited a violent insurrection on our nation's capital. He's campaigned while facing criminal indictments related to his efforts to overturn the 2020 results, and he's run as a convicted felon. During this campaign, he has also promised to essentially be an authoritarian leader, to use power like no American president ever has before, and wield that power to go after his political enemies. This is a man who's also bragged about overturning Roe v. Wade and stripping away women's...
She's announcing the new president of the United States. She's like going over all the bad things.
Bodily autonomy. He's promised to conduct mass deportations to crack down on the rights of millions of Americans. Donald Trump is an anti-democratic force, but he's just been elected democratically in our country. And here's what might be the hardest part to hear, but we have to talk about and we have to say, and it is a hard part to digest for all of us. But we have to be honest about what we saw in this election. Donald Trump was elected by expanding his support over a number of key groups that we've been digging into this night, all night tonight, as we anticipated where this was headed. And I know we're going to dig into it throughout the course of the day today. And there will be a lot of time spent on how and why he won and what this will mean for the country over the next 4 years and beyond.
I'm dying, man. There's going to be a lot of time spent on how and why he won. I saw that come up on my feed, and I watched it. Because, there was a moment where I thought it was maybe like concurrent news. And it made me laugh so hard. He's going to be authoritarian like no other. He's going to wield executive power. She was right. She wasn't wrong. The problem is that they needed to wield some executive power. The Washington, D.C. has run amok. This is Tim Burkhart meeting with Benny Johnson talking about the corruption at USAID and the money coming back. This is actually pretty stunning. Yeah, pray the rosary daily. Glorious. Debbie B, hilarious. We're just going to have an honest conversation about how we got here. It's so funny. All right, this is Tim Burkhart, and this is why the undemocratic President Trump won a democratic election, is because democracy hasn't been working out so well.
1,000 NGOs, non-government organizations working out of Afghanistan. I had Marco Rubio in committee, and I asked him, we're giving the Taliban 40 million. This is just an example. 40 million a week. 2 years I've been working on this. I got a freaking memo from the dadgum State Department, and they're no friends of mine. They're no friends of this country. That's the deep state there ever was one. They've told us that we've given them close to $5 billion, and we're still doing it because it goes to the NGOs. The Democrats fought that amendment that we added NGOs into the bill. Why? Because there's 1,000 NGOs, and good and well that money's coming right back to Washington. That's what Elon told us. The paper trail runs right back. Now, can I find it? No, I don't have access to those kind of computers, but that's why they're squealing. They're squealing about it.
So squealing about USAID cuts, you're saying that our suspicions are confirmed that the money that's spent at USAID goes right back into Democrat campaign coffers.
Almost 100%. Almost 100%. There's still some Republicans, I think, if they are, that's why leadership, they sent somebody to see me. They sent my buddy, and he sits beside me. Tim, man, some of the chairman are kind of upset what you said, and, go through all this stuff. And I said, but it's the truth, right? He goes, well, yeah, we know it's the truth, but you just can't keep saying it. And I keep saying it. So that's why I always tell people I'm not suicidal.
You made a lot of news on our show saying that you believe that there could have been some real payola with some of these Biden
Have
pardons.
to be 8,000 pardons. I said 2,000, and it's come out. Somebody said something
8,000.
about 8,000 freaking pardons. You think Joe couldn't remember what he'd had for breakfast? He couldn't remember where the dadgum bathroom was. And he reviewed 8,000 files on pardons. Give me a freaking break. This is so shady, and it's just Washington, D.C. It happens every day. That's the thing. It happens all the time. But with Trump in there, we're focusing on some of this stuff.
Yeah.
And every department is suspect. And, you just can't get past it.
Every department is suspect. Every institution of the government is suspect. And, for a guy like me who's been kind of on the outside, the conspiracy theorist for all these years, like these people are corrupt. Like Down Carlin called this a long time ago. What were we thinking? Here's this woman right here was on the Breakfast Club with Charlemagne Dagod. This is Mickey Sherrill. Okay. She was asked about some stock trading she did. She's running for governor. She was asking about some stock trading she did where she made, a quick $7 million. And I don't think she was expecting to be put on the spot. Look at her reaction.
So when Newsmax claims that you made $7 million from stock trades, what are they talking about?
Newsmax is, first of all, a very questionable organization that is paying multiple fines. I'm not.
Okay, if you can't deny the allegation up front and then engage in ad hominem, if you start out with ad hominem, that's pretty much an admission.
Sure what they're talking about.
Well, did you make $7 million in stock trades at all? Or?
I haven't. I don't believe I did, but I'd have to go see what that was alluding to again. What kind of came from.
So let me put some words in her mouth that aren't fair or true, but I know I got 7 million, but I thought it was from that deal I did. Did they launder it through stocks? That's what I heard. So she's making stock trades, making $7 million. Now, likely the allegation, if Newsmax was covering it, was that it was some type of insider trading, right? That she was unfairly using her position to be able to make those stock trades. Just like Tim Burkhardt is saying, like with the NGO, you're unfairly using your position to put you and your family members and people you want in the pathway of the money. Okay, not a very good thing. So I'm laughing. I'm like watching this whole thing happen. I'm like, Trump comes in and he's a threat to democracy. He's corrupt. I mean, that's been said a million times, but yet look at what is currently existing in our system. And you have an entire department, USAID, that Burkhardt is claiming that the money is all being funneled back to politicians. And it's probably not just politicians. It's politicians and all their apparatchiks, including people like Antifa. Now, this is kind of funny. This is Antifa gathered. If anybody wonders what Antifa looks like, this is it. Okay. That's their flag right there in the middle, Antifascia. And they're all gathered up in black bloc. They typically wear all black. They look nice and goth. Okay. But then this is kind of funny because obviously the allegation is that these people are all funded by George Soros, and they're all paid agitators. We read the little piece yesterday that talked about how this works actually counter to our means, because Antifa, just like MAGA, is an organization, but it's also an idea. So it does cross over. And the idea is what's very dangerous. The organization can be dealt with very easily, right? Organization can be dealt with. The money flow, all that kind of stuff. The area where the federal government does have jurisdiction is over the money. It doesn't have jurisdiction over your mind and over your ideas. So that's where it gets kind of tricky. And this is where I think Antifa and BLM is going to combine into this. And I think that you're going to have Islam combine into it, which is hilarious because they're Marxist to begin with. But they're going to, I guess all Antifa is kind of Marxist. It's communism over fascism, right? The two totalitarian governments teeing off. But anyways, this is Antifa asking George Soros, where's our money? George Soros, where's my 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 money? So they're clearly mocking Donald Trump, and it got very gross. Microphone. You guys, okay, kind of sound came back. Weird. That had something to do with, oh, well, apparently that Antifa video didn't like my audio. Antifa broke in. They hacked me. Okay. So Antifa's there. Where's our money? I saw a true real post. In fact, well, we're live, so I won't pull it up. It'd take too much time. But I saw a real post yesterday from HHS asking people to turn in Antifa. No crime must be committed. I need you to understand this for a second, okay? One of my mottos is don't become the thing you hate. One of the things I really hated was after January 6th was the DOJ and the FBI was putting out things for people to turn in tips, right? Well over half of the January 6ers were turned in by family members. You went to January 6th, you posted on your social media, your coworkers, your bosses, your friends, your neighbors, your friends on social media would turn those tips into the FBI. And they ran down tens of thousands of tips. Just getting a call from the FBI, if all you did was attend on January 6th and walked around the lawn, was terrifying, okay? So they put out this thing basically saying, send in pictures of Antifa. No crime has to be committed or alleged. So they just want pictures of Antifa. That is pretty much the same thing they did on January 6th. And that makes me extremely, extremely nervous. I don't like that at all. So we're going to be talking about some of that today on Rumble Premium. When we get into Rumble Premium, we're going to be covering some of what's happening with the Democrat Party coming up on midterms. So you're not going to want to miss that. And I've got to tell you, you've probably noticed Rumble is growing fast and it's not slowing down. They're building a real alternative to big tech that puts creators first and actually protects free speech. And now there's Rumble Premium, an easy way to upgrade your experience with Premium, and you get ad-free viewing across the platform. No pre-rolls, no interruptions, just the content you came for. Plus, Premium members unlock exclusive content like bonus videos from people like me, behind-the-scenes drops, and more from your favorite creators. Right now, Rumble is offering a $10 off annual subscription. Just go to rumble.com/premium and use the promo code STUDIO at checkout. That's rumble.com premium. Use the promo code STUDIO. No ads, more freedom, and content you actually care about. That's the deal. So today, when we get to our section of Rumble Premium, when we go private, we are going to be talking about Democrat polling because it is bad, but they are putting on quite a show. I actually really wish I could do this part in public because I know there's a few people that drop off when we go into private, but it's going to be fun because you're going to see some stuff from Hakeem Jeffries. It's going to make you just go, oh my gosh, the Democrats in live time have become the very thing they hate. So don't forget to join Rumble Premium for the end of our show today. And Chuck Todd talking about Antifa, he is going along with the same old line that was rolled out during the debate between Biden and Trump that Antifa is not a real thing. It's just an idea. And Christopher Wray said the same thing. Well, we can't really wrap our hands around Antifa because it's just a idea. Whereas MAGA, those are real grandmas. Okay, so this is Chuck Todd concerned about Trump going after Antifa. And what does that really mean?
It's going to be this executive order where they're going to try to create a new classification for anybody on the left who opposes Trump as somehow a member of Antifa and a terrorist.
Yes.
Like, this is coming. And I don't think we are fully... Now, I don't think there's any... The problem, like, I don't even know what Antifa is. I know what the definition of Antifa is. And
I know what the word means, but it's not
correct.
A group.
There is no group.
No.
And so, but what's dangerous is that by designating it, who's going to define who the group is? And if the Trump administration decides to say, you, George Soros, are a part of this group that I designated, and you're like, no, I'm not. And it doesn't matter. Like, they're going to then use that as some sort of potential opening. And I think that's what's so extraordinarily dangerous about these designations. Like what he did with, look, he's sort of testing the theory of this case with what he's doing with Venezuela.
So this is super obnoxious. Indulge me for a moment. He's testing the waters to see what he can get away with. He's not testing any waters. You guys landed the beachfront with J6. You guys tested the waters with the Tea Party and targeting the Tea Party. Trump's not doing anything new. He's doing the very thing you did. The very thing you did. He's not testing anything new. They've already created the MAGA is the same as the American Taliban, John Brennan, end quote. Okay? Like the idea that he's like, oh, he's doing something. This is exactly what they did.
And sort of designating this sort of, well, they're narco-terrorists.
Narco-terrorists
And
state.
somehow it allows, by the way, he's using the AUMF.
Yeah,
as,
of course.
as their legal cover on this, which of course is just
20 odd years old.
So far removed from what the AMUF was meant to be.
Yes, and that's the thing. Oh, it's so far removed from what the AMUF was meant to be. Oh, kind of like the Logan Act when you came after General Flynn. It was like one of the first 10 laws passed and never used because it was passed as a threat. It was the first law passed as a political, strong arm move. So this is Kamala Harris on with Rachel Maddow again, bloviating over what are they going to do about Antifa?
We've also now, in an executive order today, we've got the president describing Antifa, the anti-fascist. It's not even really a movement. The anti-fascist tactics of a portion of the protest movement.
Okay, it's not really movement, but there's tactics. Boom, do the tactics, you go to prison because the tactics are the crime, lady.
As a domestic terrorist organization. What is your reaction to those things? What do you think the appropriate response is to things like that?
Well, in normal times, we should and could expect that our courts would step in when asked to declare the legality or illegality of what the president is doing. Because, Civics 101, we all know, we designed our democracy through three co-equal branches of government, the executive, the legislative, and the courts.
Okay, it wasn't word salad. That was coherent. Okay, so we rely on the courts to make these definitions. That doesn't make a ton of sense, but more than anything, we want the courts to step in a normal world. Notice how she said that, because that's going to tie in when we get into Rumble Private and we talk about Hakeem Jeffries and what he says, because they're putting a lot of blame on the court or a lot of pressure on the court right now. And it has to do with a lot of stuff, but they're basically at their last standoff. They're at their last stronghold of levers of power. They're in the minority everywhere. They're in the minority in the electorate. They know they're getting toasted because 2 million illegals that presumably vote or can vote or create a ballot for a Democrat have been deported. Voter rolls are getting cleaned up. We've yet to get an official executive order on election voting machines and paper ballots and voter ID, but it's coming. Okay. The Democrats are basically putting it off on the court. They're running talking points to ground. It's really not working very well. And again, as every little thing is exposed, for example, the history of the different shooters that we've had, like this, this long line of mass shooters and people who've threatened public officials, one after another, they're being exposed to be leftists, and in many cases, transgender oriented. Pray the Rosary Daily, Glorious, you already said that. Shantini, welcome. Happy Tuesday, Peasants. Douglas Wyatt, I'm always so happy to see you here. Carlites, good morning to you guys. Thank you very much. Okay, so there was another incident that happened where a deranged leftist lunatic named Annabelle Hernandez Santana shot up ABC 10's television station in Sacramento on Friday. Okay. So she went on a shooting spree, shooting into the news building itself. Now, presumably, right when this happened, there was a whole bunch of talk that this was MAGA. This was one of those right-wing extremists we got to be worried about, those American Taliban. Turns out that wasn't really the case.
Over the weekend, an ABC station in Sacramento shot up by someone. They've been arrested first by the state of California, released quickly, by the way, then arrested by the FBI. The suspect is Annabelle Hernandez Santana. He shot 3 times at the ABC 10 station. He was released on bail on Saturday, rearrested by the FBI. He's facing charges. But look at this from the DOJ, Clay.
Okay, allegedly he was angry about Jimmy Kimmel being fired. So, right off the bat, oh, it's a Republican shooter.
This is what he said in his letter. He said that there was a plan to go on and in a handwritten note said, do the next scary thing. Law enforcement also found a note that said, for hiding Epstein and ignoring red flags, do not support Patel, Bongino, and AG Pam Bondi. They're next. CK from above. So this is another crazy person, inundated, saturated in the nonsense from the left, moved to violence.
Yes, and this is why I am so angry about this, Will, and I'm going to tee off, and I've been teeing off on it quite a bit. You cannot call your political opponents for a decade. You can't call Donald Trump Adolf Hitler, and you can't call everyone like you and me who voted for Trump modern-day Nazis and expect that there are going to be no consequences. The guy who tried to kill Brett Kavanaugh, crazy left-wing leftist motivated by political violence. The guy that killed Charlie Kirk, crazy left-wing leftist who was in many ways motivated by this crazy language. This guy who just shot up the ABC Sacramento, thankfully nobody was hurt. The guy who tried to kill Trump, we know for sure on trial right now in Florida. And I also believe the guy who tried to kill him in Butler. These people's brains have been polluted by left-wing rhetoric. If you're telling people these guys are Nazis and fascists, don't then show up when they actually act and say, oh, we decry the violence. They caused it. Left-wingers are creating this. They are causing this violence. It is a huge major issue. It has to be addressed. And I think, unfortunately, more of this violence is going to happen until it is.
I think that's the biggest concern everybody has, is that more violence continues. Oh, you're going to want to see me. I'm still here. The more violence continues, but he's absolutely right. And by the way, that was Clay and Buck. That was the Clay portion, Clay Travis. I used to listen to him in prison every day from, let's see, he would go on at noon and I would listen to them from noon to 3, Clay and Buck. And on another channel, there was Dana Lausch. I could hardly stand to listen to her. And I didn't really love Clay and Buck either, but it was all I had. I felt like they were squishes, but they got a big national show. They took over some of the Rush Limbaugh time slots. Okay. So what he's saying is you can't be calling Trump Hitler year after year after year and not expect stuff like that to happen. Now, there's this interesting dichotomy that happens between the left and the right. Because remember, the left believes people on the right are bad people with bad ideas. Okay. The right thinks people on the left are generally good people with bad ideas. So when someone on the right calls someone on the left a communist, they're usually referring to their actions with the presumption that they could change course. When Democrats call someone a Nazi, it's a death sentence, because you can't change course in their perspective, right? There's a different worldview, an underlying premise of how they see the world that makes them this way. And so when the Republicans say something that's hyperbolic rhetoric, like, oh, you're a communist, or when Donald Trump calls the Democrats fascists and communists, he's defining their actions. Whereas when the right does it, they're defining your moral character, and they're making attribution that you're somehow connected to Hitler. It's not really the case, right? It would be when a Republican does it, they're literally defining what you're talking about as far as social governance, communism, fascism. When they do it, it's a hate slur, okay? Which also is a huge problem. Because if a Republican calls a Democrat a communist or a fascist, because either one could be totally true, it's not necessarily hate. It's part of a debate point. It's an argument. It's saying, hey, listen, you're talking about using the power of the state under direct direction of the government. That's a fascist style of government. Now, if you want to debate the merits of fascism, we could do that. Right? Because you could always go back to, as Aristotle, and talk about the philosopher king. I mean, shoot, if we could have a philosopher king, why not return to monarchy? It's actually a really efficient system, right? The problem is concentrations of power, and we know power ultimately corrupts, right? So we would have that debate. They wouldn't do any such thing. They just make a label and away you go. If you've said something hateful, boom, that's it. You're a bad person. You deserve to be punished. It's not about the marketplace of ideas or anything like that. And in California, while we've all been dealing with Charlie Kirk, in the last week, California passed the most aggressive hate speech law that infringes on your freedom of speech as I have ever seen. If you live in the state of California, and some people that I love do, I would seriously consider getting out. We don't know how this ends. It took 20 years plus for the Patriot Act to come around and bite me in the ass. Okay. It took years for some of the things that happen on like the medical side to come around and start to be where we look around going, why do so many people have autism? Okay. So a law like this that gets passed, usually what will happen is it will sit dormant until everybody's forgotten about it. All the appeals are gone and nobody challenges it in court for 3, 4, 5 years. And then all of a sudden they pull it out and it's matured and it can be enforced. You know, brand new laws that are passed and then immediately implemented usually get challenged in court. But when you let something sit on the books for a while before you pull it out, danger, danger, danger.
Honestly, I can't say shit about fuck because I don't know nothing about politics, but this is pretty crazy.
Okay, totally the wrong video. Let me go find the right video here. It happens. This show is not AI. This show is not AI. Let me find the appropriate one here. Okay, here we go. The question is, I got a little ahead of myself in how I wanted to do this. So we're going to go ahead. Yep, we're going to go ahead and do this. Okay, so this is same video I just described accurately. This is the correct video. You got to have patience with me. I'm flying solo here. I don't have Ron to help me giggle when things get funny.
Of all of this, something else happened around free speech, something nobody seems to be talking about happening in the background while none of us are paying attention. The bluest state in the country, California, just passed the most censorious bill ever to be introduced in this country, SB 771, passing the Assembly on September 10th, 10 days ago. Then on September 16th, passing the Senate completely under our noses, which means right now, all that stands between complete statewide government censorship is Gavin Newsom's signature. Now, am I exaggerating about how bad this bill is? No, I am not. Here is the actual bill. You can pull this up yourself on the state's website. The bill's called SB 771. It's called Personal Rights Liability Social Media Platforms. In Section 2, Title 23 of the bill, it defines the penalties for breaking this new California law. If you post something on social media anywhere online that the state of California deems to be hateful, there's a penalty for that reckless violation, a civil penalty of up to $500,000. For an intentional, knowing, or willful violation, a civil penalty of up to $1 million. That is the definition of the state controlling speech, folks, not what Trump just did. We don't like what the FCC chairman happened to say on Benny Johnson's show, but there's a huge difference between that and real government censorship. And what type of speech is California trying to police here? Well, let's read from the bill. It says, this bill protects against online harassment, particularly when directed at historically marginalized groups. Which means what? If you were to, I don't know, point out who the Kavanaugh assassin is, which we all just learned about this morning in this new court filing, if you were to say who that person is,
transgender,
would you be fined $500,000? Pretty frightening. All of this happening in the midst of the media and Democrats, Barack Obama, Kamala Harris making hay out of Trump trying to attack the First Amendment. Meanwhile, the state of California is actively passing UK-style laws that will fine you for saying the wrong thing. Pretty wild. And this bill is completely done, folks. It's passed in the House. It's passed in the Senate. All that's left is Gavin Newsom signing it into law.
So consider this for a moment. Here the Democrats are whining and complaining about executive power and how Trump is an authoritarian and how, he's got all this power. Yet it's the Democrats and the Republicans, it's the uniparty, who have over time given the executive branch more and more and more power. How could you possibly claim to be for free speech and open debate, a progressive liberal, and support a law like that? Well, we want to protect our marginalized community. And I will ask your question back when you ask about Antifa. And what is Antifa? And what is a marginalized community? And who defines that? How many Christians a year have to die before Christians get to be categorized as a marginalized identity? Or how about white cisgender males in white collar corporate jobs? How many white cisgender males have to be discriminated against and held back because of their race before they're recognized as a marginal group? Heaven forbid California get a Republican governor. and they can weaponize that against you. Again, don't become the thing you hate. Don't pass into laws that if the opposing team had got into power could use against you. That's the whole idea here. That's why we use Robert Rules of Order, where the minority gets at least some voice, unlike the state of Washington, where we have Reed's Rules of Order. Point is, right, there's a great example. September 10th, the day Charlie Kirk got assassinated, that bill made it through the assembly. Hate speech. You want to talk about Charlie Kirk's assassin, transgender, marginalized person, can't talk about him, hate speech, can't talk about him, $500,000 fine. $500,000 fine. Now, oddly enough, that video I just showed with Clay Buck where they were talking about the shooter that went up and shot up the ABC News, do you know what the maximum time in prison, the maximum time that you could spend in jail for shooting up a building as a hate speech, as a hate crime, by the way, right? Do the next most scary thing, okay? As a hate crime, shooting up a building, taking a firearm through a school zone, firing at a studio with people there, 5 years in prison. 5 years. 5. Cinco. 5 years. I got 7 years and 3 months for shaking a gate unarmed, wearing a puffy jacket and a scarf. Okay. 12 seconds of, hey, you stole our election. Banished. 7 years, 3 months. Shoot up a studio? 5 years, probably cut it in half. We'll see. Maximum, by the way. I was facing a maximum of 40 years. A maximum of 40 years. I got sentenced to 7 years and 3 months. He's looking at a maximum of 5. He might get sentenced to 8 months, a year and a day, which works out to 6 months with good time in the federal system. Wow. Talk about unfair. Seriously. Okay. Now on the economic side, economics, when we talk about it at a big level, right? We have these people on TV that put on their shirts and ties. They live in New York. They eat $48 filet mignon, brisket sandwiches or filet mignon, barbecue sandwiches at their nice restaurants. Their portfolios have millions of dollars in them, right? When they talk about the economy, they talk about the macro economy. Let's talk a moment about the micro economy. What does it actually cost to get something done? So this is some true journalism talking about the extreme rate of inflation that we are experiencing. I want to connect it to some real things that are happening and show you just how messed up our little economy has become.
Honestly, I can't say shit about fuck because I don't know nothing about politics, but this is pretty crazy. These are the signs we would use for our oil changes last year. These are the ones we were using, but as you can see, they're in the... because the price went up again. They're $69.95 now. I couldn't tell you if inflation was real or happening right now or not, but it's been 1 year. Okay, so I'm filming this just 1 week after I filmed those last videos. They went up again to $79.99 or $120 for a full synthetic, which is actually competitive pricing for an oil change right now, which just doesn't make any sense because you can go buy 5 quarts of oil for like $30 at Amazon, but somehow the price of labor is what's bringing the price of the oil changes up. Meanwhile, the people doing the labor don't get any pay raise or anything. So I don't know. Honestly, okay. I can't say.
This is what I want to share with you guys, because this is exactly why me as a peasant in college realized that I couldn't work for anybody ever. Okay. I couldn't work for anybody in any kind of labor. And the reason is this. So that particular store, I'm making suppositions, allegations that are unfounded, completely pulled out of my head. So I just want to say that for the lawyers if they come after me after I go over this. Quick Lane Tire and Auto Center operates in the United States and Puerto Rico with over 775 locations nationwide. Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, California, Florida, Texas, Virginia, and Washington all have Quick Lane Tire and Auto Centers. All of those states, with maybe Alaska excepting, have an illegal immigration problem. What are the odds? What are the odds that out of their 775 locations, there's a smattering of people that are here illegally and don't want to raise a lot of awareness and frankly could make more money at the tire center than they can back in their home country. So they agree to bargain their labor for less than someone who maybe grew up here and values their labor a little bit more. 775 locations. I don't know what percentage of their employees maybe were illegal immigrants and kept the labor low. So when he says they're not paying us more, no, but they're probably losing workforce, and they're going to have to pay higher wages at certain locations. So maybe, Mr. Kid, at your location, that's not the case, but there are likely locations where the entire staff is illegal. And as they disappear one after a time, you can't just rehire them. You've got to go find someone who probably wants to work for a few more dollars an hour, right? That's why your prices are going up, where they should have been all along. That's the problem. Our economy has been certain prices have been artificially brought low, right? Which then, because labor is cheaper, which then makes it, oh, hey, I can buy more of XYZ. The problem is the people I'm giving the money to aren't turning around and putting the money back in the economy. They're sending remittances back home. They're living on a tight budget. They're not reinvesting. They're surviving, right? And I'm enabling it. And I'm not advancing society. I'm basically watching that money go back overseas. So I don't know that that's the case, but it seems very logical to me when I look at where they operate, 775 locations. Oil prices have actually gone down, but yet your price is going up, and not slowly, by the way, rapidly, almost as rapid as the immigration or the deportations that are happening. That I find very fascinating. So I am not making any allegations against Quick Lube or whatever they're called. I'm just pointing out, I think that could be something that's happening there, is that the reason you're seeing certain little segmented prices increasing is things are having to reset themselves. It's my opinion that once things reset themselves, there'll be an equilibrium and a balance. There's a utility of things, right? A 3-bedroom, 2-bath condo in a big city can't be worth more than a certain utility of housing. At a certain point, the bubble pops, it has to reset. It's the same thing with all of these different jobs. When you've got jobs where illegal immigrants have artificially kept wages down 30 or 40%, you're going to have to see prices kind of find that equilibrium. But at the same time, employment and wages will go up commensurate with it, right? Sucking up that money, allowing us to spend more. It has to find its equilibrium. It can't be kept artificially low. Tom Holman was on with Laura Ingraham, and he's kind of going through his own little scandal with allegedly having been set up by Biden's DOJ and taken a bag of $50,000 cash, which turns out they said there was a video. Turns out it's more of an audio, but they won't release it. It's totally General Flynn 2.0. This was their way of trying to get the border czar, the guy who's going to make the biggest difference, right, out, just like Flynn was going to make the biggest difference cleaning up the intel agencies, out. And instead, we ended up rolling forward to January 6th in 2020 because those intel agencies didn't cleaned up. Had they not gone after Tom Holman, or had they successfully got Tom Holman out of the administration, we probably wouldn't have very few deportations, because Tom is so aggressive with this. He was on with Laura Ingraham last night talking about how successful they have been with deportation, and it's only ramping up.
We're at over 400,000 deportations, and between CBP and ICE, and that's just since the president took office. The first 4 months of the fiscal year, we can't count them because Joe Biden wasn't doing anything. But here's what people need to understand: 2 things. Number one, over 1.5 million illegal aliens, close to 1.6 illegal aliens already left the country on their own. Why? Because they see what ICE is doing out there every day. One of the reasons we have the most secure border in the history of this nation is because the great work of the men and women of the Border Patrol, the great work of President Trump and his leadership, but also because ICE is out there, over 1,000 teams all across the country arresting people. So a lot of people have left. A lot of people aren't coming, which helps to secure that border. And that was a part of the strategy from the beginning. We said if we show consequences, we show them we're actually out there looking for them, many will leave. So we knew with a large population leaving, over 1.5 million have. But what's to come? ICE is getting 10,000 more agents. Right now, they got 5,000 deportation officers. We're tripling the size of the workforce. We're adding more detention beds. We're adding more flights and more transportation. So the numbers are going to explode here this next coming year.
Admittedly, if you're on the list of deportation, you're probably not living very happy right now. And I could understand why you'd want to take a seat, chill out, calm down, because ICE is coming for you. There's a 5,000 out looking. There's going to be 15,000 out looking anymore. So if you're paranoid or freaking out about ICE coming for you, it's time for them to take a seat. This is a transition into a shameless ad, by the way. All right, outdoor crew, or anyone who just wants to be ready for anything, check out Red Pro Series 72, our emergency kit from Catasports Sports. This is a Series 72-hour survival pack built into a rugged tactical backpack and loaded with everything one person needs. So if you happen to be listening to me and you're on that deportation list, you might want to hurry up and get one of these backpacks with survival needs because you're probably going to be on the run. This is a serious 72-hour survival pack built into a rugged tactical backpack loaded with everything one person needs. 2,400 calories of food bars, 5 water pouches, thermal energy blanket, 36-piece first aid kit, emergency stove and canteen cup. All of it has a 5-year shelf life, so you're covered for hurricanes, wildfires, blackouts, whatever life throws your way, or that long journey back south through the desert back to Mexico where you came from. Whether you're off-grid or just want a peace of mind, I've really messed up this ad. I hope these guys don't mind that I turned it into like a shameless deportation thing. Whether you're off-grid or just want peace of mind at home, there's a kit, a must-have, compact, reliable, and made for real emergencies. You use code RUMBLE for 10% off your order today. That's Catasports. Gear up and stay safe and be ready when it counts. I thought that was going to be an ad for chairs, but it ended up being for survival stuff, which actually was more relevant to people, heading back home, avoiding deportation. Thank you for indulging me on a shameless ad read, guys. You guys are the best. Oh, I love it. It's really just about hitting our goals. Our audience isn't exactly big enough to just for relevance. So you guys understand, when I did that Rumble premium read earlier, we made 12 cents. So yeah, if you'd like to, really help the show out, you can leave a Rumble rant or go to buymeacoffee.com. That's how you can really help the show out. Or the other thing you could do too is, like, if you're putting your kids to bed, my kids will listen to stories all night long, like audiobooks. Put it on Peasants Perspective and just let it run. Hours viewed is like the best thing that we can get. So anyways, oh man, Bill O'Reilly was having an absolute fit about this idea that somehow Trump is using his power to keep news networks from having Jimmy Kimmel on. And his perspective is, you guys have been doing this forever, right? You guys have been keeping people off these mainstream media sites, and it's not fair. It's not in the public interest.
The 3 networks use what they call the public airways. Therefore, there are government regulations on them that they must operate within the public interest. That is the headline. So ABC, NBC, CBS have to operate within the public interest. That's subjective. But Carr has the right to go in and investigate anything that he believes is not in the public interest. And I'll submit this to you. There's almost a total blackout in the United States for non-liberal voices on the network news. Did you know that, Pierce?
Yeah, no, it's obvious. Yeah.
It's been in place ever since Donald Trump got into the political arena. I'm the best-selling nonfiction author in the world. As you know, anybody putting me on TV gets higher ratings. People want what that crazy O'Reilly is going to say today. I can't get booked on the Today Show or Good Morning America or any of the late night shows. Why? Because I'm not a liberal. Jimmy Kimmel didn't book one liberal in 3 years.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So the FCC,
conservative,
and there's no denying that the Trump administration despises people who it deems have treated Donald Trump unfairly. There's no denying that. But the FCC says, hold it. Is this in the public interest? Where you have the 3 networks blacking out, excluding every voice that isn't non-liberal, that isn't a liberal voice. You can't plug a movie, a book, a recording. You can't have a dialogue. Now, I used to be on Kimmel and Letterman and Leno all the time because the ratings were so good, and The View all the time. But that changed, and the corporations, they were fine with it. Disney led the league in it. So you're telling me that that's not an attack on freedom of speech? So these 400 movie stars, TV stars, oh, Jimmy Kimmel, oh, well, what about the blackout? And I'm not a what about guy. I'm not. That's ridiculous. You gotta keep it into what you're talking about here. But there wasn't a word from the left because the left benefited from this. And that was the biggest assault on freedom of speech I've ever seen in my lifetime.
They've become the very thing they hate. I remember the day Donald Trump was taken off Twitter and all the social media sites, and I posted, I was like, hey, I'm deleting my accounts because we don't come back from this. Oh, you guys are going to want to see my pretty face. Sorry about that. Because we don't come back from this. How do you take the president of the United States off of social media and just be like, oh, well, it was in the public interest to take him off because he's such a horrible person? He's still the elected leader. They're still following him around with the nuclear football. What if he needed to get an urgent message out like, hey, we're being attacked. I'm launching back. Oh, can't do that. Hate speech, hate speech, hate speech. These people are bananas. So here is Leader Jeffries talking about the Supreme Court. Now, remember, earlier I played the clip where Kamala Harris tells Rachel Maddow, well, we need the Supreme Court to push back. We need the Supreme Court to do its job, right? Like, it's the legislature, it's the Democrats for all these years in combination with the Uniparty that has created all these laws that have totally delegated to the executive branch astonishing, astronomical amount of power. You haven't rescinded or gotten rid or voted against any of the emergency orders that we're still living under, aka, where's our gold and silver, guys, right? AKA, why isn't our money redeemable, guys? Right? There's a whole bunch of stuff that we're still living under these executive orders where the Constitution has been suspended. There's been a concentration of power in the executive branch, and there's finally being a carve back. These guys are totally flat-footed because of the Loper-Bright decision. The carve backs won't easily be replaced. So they're trying to prevent the carve backs by leaning on the judicial branch to stop it. But the fact of the matter is, it's this very judicial branch, Supreme Court, that overturned the Chevron doctrine with Loper-Bright, right? And like if you look at Kavanaugh, one of his big things was, I want a really strong executive branch. Like they're totally into it. Kavanaugh was one of the drafters of the Patriot Act. Okay. So they're not going to go backwards. Now, had the Democrats maintained power and just got someone that really liked executive power on the Supreme Court that happened to be a Democrat, aka Ketanji Brown Jackson, right, who now opposes the executive branch in favor for judicial imperialism, as Amy Coney Barrett says, right? But either way, they want that concentration of power. And now they want the judicial branch to try to stop it because they are truly unable to. Oh, again, not AI. I got to share the screen. There's a process to this. Don't forget the little things, Taylor, like share screen.
We should also blame the conservative justices on the Supreme Court for all of the things that we see happening, because they basically gave this president blanket presidential immunity in a country where the framers of the Constitution said, we don't want a king. But they've effectively enabled Donald Trump at times to behave just like a king. And that needs to be revisited as well. The Supreme Court, shame on them for what they've done to this country in unleashing this out of control behavior. That needs to be reversed.
Let me just follow up with you on that, though. By saying that, are you undermining trust and faith in a critical institution in this democracy?
Oh!
Are you referring to the Supreme Court or the Trump administration?
To the Supreme Court. No, to the Supreme Court. You're saying, they've unleashed this. The justices have done this. They made him king. Are you undermining faith in an important institution in this democracy?
No, what I'm undermining faith in is a decision that had no basis in the Constitution, no basis in law, and no basis in how the framers envisioned this democratic republic. We broke away from the notion of a king, a singular figure, and created three separate and co-equal branches of government so that no one would have the ability to unleash unchecked power, and that no one could be above the law. And it's reasonable, I think, to ask the question, why was that decision issued? And what are the consequences that have flowed from that decision over the last 8.5 months? And so that's what I'm questioning. Not the integrity of the court, but yes, I am questioning the integrity of that decision and what it has wrought now on the American people because of the out of control behavior coming out of the White House.
No, I'm pretty sure you were questioning the integrity of that court. I'm pretty sure she called you on your stuff. He was like, that's our line. We're supposed to say that they're the ones that are, completely. What a great thing. Again, they want the courts. to stand up to Donald Trump because the legislature is feckless. And the reality is, as we listened yesterday, right, because you guys are all daily listeners, what did the CIA, ex-ESA operative said? Obama's the one who did this. They'd slowly given all this executive branch all this power, but the executive himself wasn't really using it. I mean, maybe some cabinet secretaries to define a rule. I mean, they did a lot of stuff, but, you know, just kind of like this soft power, this soft tyranny. Well, Barack Obama comes in and he's like droning American citizens. He's selling guns to cartels down in Mexico and going after the gun dealers when they're setting it up. Those guns are being used, by the way, to kill Border Patrol agents. You know, he's giving pallets of cash to Iran, like Libya, Syria. I mean, can we go on and on and on? Total abuse of executive power. But yet, now it's like, oh, we have to stop them. The judicial branch can't make laws. They can only interpret them. You guys wrote in all that power. You guys did that, right? The executive branch, yeah, the executive power is supposed to be solely in the executive, but he's not supposed to make rules or decisions or anything like that. You're supposed to. So, Hakeem, why haven't you been doing your job? Reality is I don't really want him to do his job. Now, going along with this idea that the government is always manipulating us, they're always telling a story. Because remember, the Smith-Mundt Act hasn't been restored to its full glory to prevent propaganda. And so with this Tyler Robinson shooting, there's just nothing that makes great sense. Kash Patel put out a tweet yesterday, which was, or if not yesterday, 2 days ago, that was actually a really good tweet because he didn't puppet this media line and the Utah prosecutors line, which it's, in my opinion, they always leave things out, right? They always want to make it seem very one-sided. And this Tyler Robinson thing, it's full of inconsistencies. You're asking me not to believe my lying eyes, like, where's the gun when he jumps off the roof? Or where's this box that the gun was in? Like, nobody's talking about that. I wrapped it in a towel in a box, but you were walking to the event with it in your pant leg, but then allegedly you disassembled. Nothing makes sense here. And here's a little guy kind of just doing a skit that is explaining that, which again, I think is funny because there's a lot of truth to this. Maybe, do I have sound? Oh,
I just did that.
This is mocking the shooter and what the FBI wants us to believe is happening.
Oh, God. Oh, I can't believe I just did that. I should probably get the heck out of Dodge, but first, let me text my leftist trans lover every detail of what I just did and why. Been planning for a week. Engraved the bullets. Disassembled the rifle, reassembled the rifle, disassembled the rifle, reassembled the rifle, disassembled the rifle, reassembled the rifle without a screwdriver while running. Put it in the woods, covered it in a towel. I did this for you. And send. All right. It's a good thing that I, Tyler Robinson, someone who has a 4.0 GPA and a 34 on the ACT, is smart enough to know that there is no way that the FBI could ever get a hold of my text messages.
It does really make you wonder, doesn't it? Nobody's immune to sitting around and thinking they can plan the perfect crime, right? You're lying if you've never done it. Like, how would I get away with that? You know, you watch a crime show and you're like, where did they go wrong? And usually for a sane person, the conclusion is the juice ain't worth the squeeze, man. You ain't ever getting away with it, right? So the idea that this extremely intelligent Tyler Robinson would do this and then all of a sudden like make a full confession. I'm not the only one questioning it. Let's just say that. I'm not the only one questioning it. This was, I always forget him, Michael Knowles. Michael Knowles, who's from Daily Wire with Ben Shapiro's kind of one of the partners over there, you know, main personalities. He is at this Turning Point event and he is kind of doing the little debate thing. And somebody is basically, they're talking about the Kimmel being canceled. And Michael Knowles says something that I think you're starting to see a change. This is the whole "you killed Charlie" thing, right? The time for debate on stupid things is over. And I still got to share the screen. You guys are great.
Silencing people for saying lies. What is a lie? What is truth? You know,
a lie is the opposite of the truth. And what is truth is what Pontius Pilate asked to Christ before he sentenced him to the cross. It's the line of a cynic that surrenders his reason.
He never said anything untrue. He was quoting the governor of Utah, who said this person didn't come.
Jimmy Kimmel never said anything
untrue.
untrue?
From a different country.
Jimmy Kimmel never said anything. Jimmy Kimmel said that the shooter was a MAGA Republican, and that's a lie. There's no evidence.
One of us, and he quoted bad Republicans. Look, we can debate on what.
We don't have to debate. It's a lie. It's an obvious and egregious lie. We don't need to pretend that this is complicated at all. The shooter was a radical left-wing activist who inscribed Antifa slogans on the bullets and was dating a trans furry boyfriend. I don't think he voted for Trump. Kimmel lied. The audience turned on him. The affiliates turned on him. He deserves to lose his job. I'm frankly disappointed that he's getting his job again, but I'm confident even fewer people will watch it this time.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm glad you understood my point.
That's it. I will no longer debate you. I will no longer debate the truth. You're a boy. You're a girl. The shooter was a leftist. You're a Nazi. It's not up for debate. How would you like to explain how your policies don't use government power to enforce the state's will through the corporations? I'll wait. Oh, you're not a communist? Oh, tell me about how the individual is lifted up inside of your economic models. It's not up for debate. We're done debating whether there's a North Star or not. We're done debating whether the sun rises in the east, for those of you that know that parable, right? We're done debating those things. We're done. No, like it's not a discussion. You know, what is truth? Truth is truth. Truth is what it is. Like this whole relativity thing, unless we're talking physics, that rock is a rock. If we're having a physics discussion, sure, it's a bunch of atoms moving around. But we know what truth is. And that's one thing peasants are really good at. Don't lie to me. Don't tell me, you know, it's cloudy outside when I see the sun, when there's not a cloud in the sky, right? Don't ask me to believe my lion eyes. Here's another thing, right? Criminals, say, for example, in the District of Columbia that are just happen to be a little underage, have gotten this huge rope to hang themselves with, all the way to the point where they don't seem to get in trouble until they actually finally murder someone. Well, that has ended. This is Janine Pirro, the new DC attorney for the District of Columbia, and she's saying that era has ended.
These out-of-control juveniles who think nothing of illegally possessing a weapon and holding up individuals are now going to find that they will be made accountable, that there will be consequences, and there will be no more coddling of young criminals. This is why we fight. This is why we prosecute. And this is why the president is making safety a priority in the district.
When Donald Trump one time said that the radicals on the right want law and order, they get radical for law and order. They want normalcy. He's right. He's right. Right? I'm a law and order guy. My whole life, I've been a rule follower. Now, I push on the fringes, try to find, you know, that's me. I'm an entrepreneur, right? I'm always trying to be on the frontier of something. However, he's absolutely right, where people on the right get radicalized because you're not doing one system of law. You're not everyone equal under the law. Why do I have to follow the law if you don't? Why does Hunter Biden get to smoke cocaine and I don't? Why does Hunter Biden get to traffic women in and out of his home, young women, and I don't? Why does Hunter Biden get to take funds for using his dad's name and whatever and spend it on cocaine, crack, and hookers, and I don't? Why is that fair? Why is he not sitting in a jail cell and I am? Right? That double standard does lead to radicalization on the right. On the left, it's kind of not that way. Okay. It's not that way at all. And so she's absolutely smart and it is absolutely correct. Listen, when you pull a gun, it doesn't matter if you're 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, you're of the age of conscience, right? You know that that's not right. And if you do think it's right, well, then we got to put you away because you're a threat to society because your brain ain't right. Okay. Absolutely smart. These young criminals that commit these adult crimes have to be treated like adults. It's just the way it is. Okay. I remember my first night in prison. Actually, it was my second night. First night too, but first night I had a cellmate. Second night I was all by myself. Second night in prison, I'm talking to the guy in the cell wall next door. So, you know, we're kind of yelling through the wall and little through the food slot, kind of hear each other. And he had this really annoying voice, sounded just like Chris Tucker. He was always yelling. Guy had TikTok brain. He could not sit quietly with his own thoughts for 10 minutes. He was just nonstop screaming, yelling, chatting, hollering for an orderly to come bring him something or tell him what time it was. It was crazy. But I asked him, why are you here? And he's like, Murder. He did a Chris Tucker voice. I can't impersonate it very well. Murder. Oh, okay. And then he goes, murder, first degree, premeditated. I'm like, I'm here for pushing a gate. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm here for obstructing Congress, sort of. It was obstructed before I got to the Capitol, but, you know, whatever. So he's like, murder, first degree. He just turned 18, and he was like, I just beat 2 attempted murder charges when I was 17 because they dropped him because he was a minor. He pulled a gun and shot at people, and they dropped the charges because he was 17. He beat the charges, right? In his mind, he beat the charges. So then it was that there the next day. He had to go to some court thing, came back, and he was all upset because he thought he was going to get a plea deal for 8 to 15 years for first-degree premeditated murder. I'm in there for 7, and he's thinking, I might get 8 for murder, right? But then they were gonna drop the 2 charges that he'd been acquitted of when he was a minor, attempted murder. They were going to add those to the case and kind of wrap it all up. So now he's like, I might end up with 20 years. Okay, I can, I understand when you get down into the nitty gritty of this stuff, how people can kind of be incensed and feel like there's a total double standard. Speaking of double standards, here's a good one for you. This might make you chuckle. So there's some big UN meeting happening in New York. World leaders are convening into New York for this General Assembly or whatever it is. I don't even know. I think it's the General Assembly. And Macron ended up trying to get to the UN Assembly and had a little problem because they blocked off the streets, and Macron, the president of France, was told by President Trump to just walk. This is hilarious. He's talking to some officers, telling them the road's blocked because of the President Trump's motorcade's coming through. And Macron calls Donald Trump and tells him the roads are blocked, and Trump tells him to walk.
I'm sorry, I'm the president. I'm really sorry. It's just that everything's frozen right now. There's a motorcade coming right now. I'm sorry. If you don't see it, let me cross.
How are you? Guess what? I'm waiting in the street because everything is frozen for you. Are we ready for a wine?
He's
taking pictures because he's going, but he has to walk to the UN General Assembly. I think that's so stinking funny, man. The president of France is told by Donald Trump, just walk. The roads are blocked, just walk. You got security, just walk. Apparently, the Secret Service took down some kind of hacking setup that was going on in New York where they were hacking all the internet around the UN, like shutting down routers, hacking into devices. Apparently, the Secret Service did some huge cyber thing and shut that down. But there was an active running ability to hack into the Wi-Fi networks around the UN, and I don't know what they were doing. They shut it off. So anyways, I got one last ad read for you guys today. Wait, what are you saying? But I want to do it. Sometimes things are a little glitchy here. Okay, so we are getting ready to move offices, and you probably always hear the squeaking of the chair as I'm rocking back and forth during videos and whatnot. Well, we want to get new chairs for the new office. So if you want to help out, feel free to help us out here. These chairs aren't super cheap, but if you're looking for a comfortable but unique option for your gaming setup, check out technosportusa.com. With a wide range of ergonomic chairs and an array of colors, you will definitely bring your setup to the next level. Always comfy, never boring. Technosport. Use code RUMBLE for 10% off the entire order. So if you'd like to help us out, get a chair. We'll use code RUMBLE. We'll get 10% off. Everybody wins. We'll have a great chairs for the studio. And it'll be awesome. But I'm seriously just looking at their chairs. I've already got my chair picked out. It's, $300+ So I'm going to have to, we're going to have to get a few more viewers for the show to really make that work, but it's going to happen. It's going to happen, folks. So okay. Don't forget, you can get your Technosport chairs. Okay. So Emmanuel Macron finds his way to the UN Assembly, had to walk. It's very, very funny. So we are going to split things up here just for a second. We are going to be talking about yesterday. Donald Trump had a massive press conference with RFK, Dr. Oz, and others talking about autism, vaccines, and Tylenol specifically. So let's listen to some of this. This was a huge deal, and I waited until the end of the show because I knew our viewership was going to be up, and this is the real meat of what happened yesterday. there are things that happen that are monumental. January 6th was monumental. It changed the trajectory of the country, right? And maybe it was the stolen 2020 election. It's kind of all in one basket. Donald Trump coming down the escalator changed the trajectory of the country. Donald Trump declaring Antifa a domestic terror organization is probably going to change the direction of the country. And the reason is you're going to find a lot of teachers out of work and professors, and you're going to find a lot of sympathizers taking a good hard look in the mirror when they realize they've been sympathetic with murder, cold-blooded murder, right? So Donald Trump here has this press conference, and he's going after Big Pharma. And almost surprisingly, the main target of yesterday's press conference was acetaminophen or Tylenol. And it has been determined that it likely is a leading cause in autism.
And it's so important to me to see the doctor 4 times or 5 times for a vaccine. Don't let them pump your baby up with the largest pile of stuff you've ever seen in your life going into the delicate little body of a baby.
Think about those words for a second. He's talking about autism. He's like, don't go back to the doctor and get pumped up with vaccine, all that material going to these delicate little bodies. Take a moment and think about Big Pharma and the vested financial interests they have in this stuff. There was a time when doctors would write a prescription for cigarettes. There was a time when the United States government accepted research and scientific studies from the tobacco industry saying that tobacco and cigarettes were safe. But then a courageous Surgeon General said, no, I don't think it is. You know, you guys have paid for all those studies. Every time we have an independent study, it shows the opposite. And he took courage and went with the actual science, the independent studies. And now it's common knowledge cigarettes are bad, right? It's common knowledge. You choose to smoke, it's totally a personal choice, okay? It's not recommended by your doctor. This was that moment for vaccines. It's just been broadly accepted. They're safe. FDA approved it. No big deal. All those studies were paid for by Big Pharma. Oh, but the FDA did the study. Exactly. And the person who did the study then went and got a job at Big Pharma afterwards. Or they came out of Big Pharma to go to the FDA to do the study and then return to their job at Big Pharma. It's completely a circle jerk. It's totally incestuous. It's no different than the tobacco industry last century telling you cigarettes were safe. Telling you vaccines are safe, trust our science, is the problem. And here's Donald Trump making total common sense. Your precious little babies, don't pump them full of mercury.
If it's 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, you just break it up into, I would say 5, but let's say 4 visits to the doctor instead of 1. And certain things I think you should do. We've already taken out and are in the process of taking out mercury and aluminum now. You know what mercury is. You know what aluminum is. Who the hell wants that pumped into a body? And there were rumors about both of them for a long time, but we're having them taken out. We're having them taken out of the vaccines. Hepatitis B, again, that's sexually transmitted.
So he goes on to talk about, let me pull up the other video here, about sexually transmitted diseases, hepatitis B. My wife has been on top of this vaccine thing for decades. We did delayed vaccination for our oldest kids, and eventually, is anybody listening? No vaccinations for our youngest kids, right? But she was always like a delayed vaccination schedule. And that's what Donald Trump is advising here. You've got to do a delayed vaccination schedule. No more of this pumping kids full of stuff right when they're born. And hepatitis B, he goes on about, that's a sexually transmitted disease. Why are you giving it to newborns? And he actually misquotes and says they give it to 2-year-olds. They don't. They give it to newborns, like the day they're born.
First, effective immediately, the FDA will be notifying physicians that the use of well, let's see how we say that. Acetaminophen. Is that okay? Which is basically commonly known as Tylenol during pregnancy, can be associated with a very increased risk of autism. So taking Tylenol is not good. All right, I'll say it. It's not good. For this reason, they are strongly recommending that women limit Tylenol use during pregnancy unless medically necessary. That's, for instance, in cases of extremely high fever, that you feel you can't tough it out, you can't do it. I guess there's that. It's a small number of cases, I think. But if you can't tough it out, if you can't do it, that's what you're going to have to do.
Pray the Rosary Dailies. I'm trying to say super smart in the chat. I said super S art, but it's supposed to be smart. Yes. Donald Trump came out and basically was like, one of the leading indicators of autism is pregnant mothers taking autism while pregnant. So now they're putting out an advisory to all doctors. Only in the most extreme of circumstances do you give a pregnant mother Tylenol. And Donald Trump went on to say, even for your newborns, right? I've given Tylenol to my kids. Don't give it to them. Let the fever come and go. Like, that's actually the medical advice now. Like, the fever will last less time. There'll be less lasting damage because the fever is the immune response to whatever infection is happening. And it's literally to burn off the viruses, right? Or germs or whatever it is, infection. And to avoid the usage because it's correlated with autism. Tylenol wasn't even on my bingo card list, right? Tylenol. I thought mercury and aluminum would be a little bit stronger indicators, but Tylenol. Camel cigarettes cause cancer. Tylenol causes autism. There was a day where saying that Camel causes cancer, cigarettes cause cancer, was like unbelievable. And well, what about all these studies? And don't you trust the government? And don't you trust the medical professionals? Don't you trust the scientists doing these studies? They say that tobacco doesn't hurt anybody. They were wrong. And more than that, they were lying. And that's where we're at today, right? They are lying. In fact, here is a Take Out with Majority Garrett on CBS. And this is after that press conference. There was a little bit of a news bit here. And Tylenol put out a statement. We're not bad.
And the control room, please bring this up. A statement from the maker of Tylenol, Kenvue. Quote, sound science clearly shows that taking acetaminophen does not cause autism. We strongly disagree with any suggestion otherwise and are deeply concerned with the health risks this poses for expecting mothers, unquote. Olivia Rinaldi joins us from the North Lawn of the White House. Olivia, always a pleasure to see you. This is a pretty big announcement from the president and his arrayed medical experts. Did they point to studies or evidence to back them up?
Well, Major, this announcement is ongoing at the moment. We heard from President Trump first and then Secretary Kennedy, the leader of HHS. They're talking about this major decision that they're making. We had not heard about studies. We had asked the White House what the underlying data would be to make such an announcement as this today.
And the control room, please bring this up. A statement from.
So, we asked for data, but we didn't get it. The data's coming. In fact, the data's been out there. That's the thing. A lot of these studies have been published. That was one of the things they were talking about yesterday is they're like, yeah, we've got like 27 studies that are really good studies that all show this correlation. And the few studies that don't, they actually are acknowledged by the study makers that they're not conclusive to Tylenol's safety because they could have been better designed studies. This is Dr. Oz and Dr. McCary on with Laura Ingraham last night, kind of going over exactly what the recommendations are.
The president really came down hard on stay away from it if you can. But then in the guidance, you're going to say if there is no other alternative for bringing down a fever, correct? If it's really high, then it's worth the cost benefit. But, of course, critics are saying you're endangering women by putting out this advice. And what if they spike the fever and then it's a nightmare?
He said there are exceptions. But I think what we're doing is we're trying to say we want to take this problem head on. We also released today information about a new label change. We're going to approve a treatment for kids with severe autism that have an antibody or a deficiency of folic acid in the brain. Maybe 20 to 50 or 60% of all the kids with autism have a blocked receptor in their brain that's not allowing their folate, that is their vitamin B9, to get in the brain and for those nerve cells to develop normally. And this medication, Leucovorin, bypasses that receptor. And there are incredible stories from doctors of seeing dramatic improvement. So we've got good news and we've got this warning.
So what they finally started doing with autism was they stopped looking at it as a genetic problem. For decades, doctors went, oh, you must have some genetic disease. This must be, oh, they're nonverbal. They're walking on their toes. They're, whatever. It's genetic. And we, can't fix genetic, right? Oh, you want to do gene therapy? Can't fix genetic. Well, now they're looking at it going, Kennedy said some stat yesterday. It was like 4 out of 5 parents or 4 out of 6. It was some astronomical percentage of parents with children with autism are personally convinced it came from vaccines because they saw regression, right? They know the moment their child became nonverbal. They know the moment their child started walking on their toes. They know the moment their child stopped making eye contact, right? They know when those things happened. And when did it happen? It usually happened around one of these vaccines. And that's where Donald Trump, he actually personally knows 2 people whose children, he shared this in the press conference yesterday. He personally knows 2 people who worked for him at Trump Corporation, whose children got the MMR combination vaccine and died that day. And he consoled the parents. He's seen it. Okay. You're not going to argue with those parents and be like, well, the vaccine was just a coincidence. It was your child's day to get a massive fever and die. Right? It has nothing to do with the vaccine that preceded the fever by 15 minutes. It was just coincidence. That's what they're being gaslit and told. On top of, not only do they find the correlation between Tylenol, pregnant women and young children taking Tylenol, and autism, right? Not only did you see that connection along with some of the vaccine stuff, which they teased out, those studies are yet to be released, or, the official determinations, but it's coming. But then on top of that, they found a drug that actually opens up that receptor and reverses autism in a significant percentage of the people who take it. Yesterday was a watershed moment, just like when the Surgeon General finally said that cigarettes cause cancer, and finally we started to see a reduction in lung cancer rates. Same thing. We finally might see a reduction in autism rates. Trump kept talking about this yesterday. In California, it's 1 in 12 children are affected by autism. Steve Bannon understood the monumental nature of yesterday's press conference. Might be the biggest thing Trump's done so far.
A lot of President Trump. We've watched a lot of candidate Trump. We've really been, I guess, with President Trump since 2015. I think that was one of the most important sessions I've ever seen for the President of the United States. Remember, today we were talking that this was, with Mary Holland, this was going to come up, and, we didn't know when the report was coming out. It was a slow walking report. President Trump just dropped bombshell after bombshell. That is going to be studied in years to come. In an hour, he went through and just eviscerated. I think Big Pharma, although at the end say he's a huge supporter of vaccines. I don't know if that was my initial takeaway. One takeaway I did write down on my number 2 pencil was do not take Tylenol, which he said about 50 times. I can imagine they're getting a lawsuit ready right now. He said there's no ADHD. This was incredible. Incredible.
Yeah, there's no ADHD. There's no medical diagnosis of ADHD. You have an energetic child. Okay. I have a son. His name is Joe. He is smart. Okay. He is smart. I have a sister-in-law who says your son was born competent. Okay. Everything he approaches in life is I can figure it out and I can do it. He as a child has an attitude of if another human can do it, I can too. Excellent attitude. Okay. He doesn't have a short attention span. Kid can focus as long as he wants on anything. But what he does have is a low threshold for bull crap. He doesn't waste his time, right? He wants to do what he wants to do. He wants to be productive. This is a child that I've taken to work with me on construction sites who has worked at my side for 8 straight hours. I've had him do landscaping, planting. He's 8. He can outwork most 20-year-olds. And I do not, I am not joking when I say that. I can give him a task, show him how it's done, have him do it once or twice, and he will do that thing all day long. I've had him plant whole gardens, right? I've had him do raking, lots of stuff. He is absolutely someone who would have been diagnosed with ADD or ADHD because there's no way he could sit in a class and be held back by remedial students when he comprehended the subject in 2 minutes. and then was like, okay, what's next? There's zero chance he was going to wait 20 minutes, 30 minutes for the class to catch up, right? He would be the one that would be talking back to the teachers. He'd go to school. He would live for recess. Who knows what they're doing during the day, but recess. Okay. ADHD is a personality. It's not a medical condition. Now, I'm sure some people out there are like wildly offended that I'm saying that because their kids are on or Adderall, but which I really started meth and Adderall when I got into prison because I had a cellmate who sold fake pills, and he would sell Adderall pills, and it was straight meth. It was straight meth. You'd get people who had Adderall prescriptions, and then when they couldn't pay for the prescription anymore, they'd buy pills from him, and they were just crushing up meth and putting it in pill form and giving it to people, and the customers couldn't tell the difference between Adderall and meth. I find that interesting. So anyways, ADHD, Tylenol, don't take Tylenol, acetaminophen. Wow, what a news conference yesterday. Carolyn Levitt was, in fact, I need to refresh this page because it's doing that thing where it won't stop playing, and it messed up my audio when I pulled it up. Yeah, Evereasel. Who would have thought? Exactly. Who would have thought? So this is Carolyn Levitt being asked about Tylenol, and is this really the way it is? Is this fair?
On the autism issue again, there are reams of scientific research that suggests there's no clear link between autism and acetaminophen usage.
Okay, there are reams of scientific evidence that suggest there's no clear link between Tylenol and autism. Yeah, exactly. Paid for by the Tylenol manufacturers and the acetaminophen manufacturers. And there's also more reams of paper proving there is a connection.
You're suggesting today they may have new information on this. A lot of it, in this entire debate, has the potential to confuse women, especially pregnant women, about what to do. What do you say to those that say what you're doing today potentially just introduces more confusion into the debate?
I think women for many years, in fact, for decades, Ed, have been confused by the rapid increase in autism in this country, in the childhood epidemic that is chronic epidemic, disease epidemic that is plaguing America's youth. Women are confused about that, and they want answers to that. And that's exactly what this administration is focused on finding. And before you jump to conclusions based on reports that the White House has not even confirmed, I would encourage everyone in this room to go into the 4 o'clock announcement with some critical thinking skills and with some open ears to actually listen to what the president and his team of outsiders have to say about this. And there will be a number of things that will be announced and discussed. And I think, I know as a mother myself, I speak, I believe, for many mothers across the country who really want answers to what is happening to our nation's children. So again, I won't get ahead of the president, but I think everyone in this room needs to tone down the judgment before you even hear what people are going to say.
I'll tell you what, I have been wildly impressed by Carolyn Levitt. I really have. I thought Kellyanne McEnany was pretty good. I thought Sarah Sanders was really good, but Carolyn Levitt has been wildly impressive. And I actually want to show one other video to wrap up our public side here. And you guys are going to want to hear this. There's one sign that you can look for. There's one singular thing you can look for to determine if you're in a psyop, to determine if you're in a situation where you're being manipulated. Okay. There's one thing that guarantees you are in a psychological operation. Whether the psychological operation comes from your religion and your church, whether it comes from your government, whether it comes from your employer, whether it comes from your friend group. If this one thing is present, you are being manipulated. I'm going to have to share the screen. Would have been really great if I could have just hit play. All right. One thing's present. You are being manipulated.
You only need one thing, and you can spot whether or not you're standing in the middle of a psyop. That one thing is, if the opinion that's coming out needs people to be silenced, it's a psyop. There are psychological operations in play.
Wow. So if you can't question it, if you're supposed to just go along, it's a psyop.
Yeah, and if people have to be silenced or publicly shamed because of their information, and they're not telling people the sky's falling, they're not saying crazy shit. Mm-hmm. They're just saying basic stuff, and they need to be silenced. That is a psyop.
If all you're doing is saying, hey, can I see the studies? If all you're doing is saying, hey, I noticed some pattern recognition here and I'd like to talk about it. If all you're doing is like, hey, here's a scripture verse and it doesn't make sense with what you said on the pulpit. If they're like, no opinions, silenced, One way only, PSYOP, manipulation. When it comes to medical stuff, do not trust the experts. I want to hear everybody. I want to hear it all. Pile it all on the table. In confusion, you can make conclusion. In confusion, you can make conclusion. When you have multiple things to look at and to think about, you can ingest it, you can distill it, and you can come to your own conclusion, one that you can stand on, right? I don't care what your opinion is, just form it, have it. Live in that state of cognitive dissonance, in confusion. Allow the questions to surface, right? If in Ayn Rand, in Atlas Shrugged, she talks through her character, I think it's through one of the professors that's the professor of John Galt, Francisco D'Anconio, and the Norwegian name that I could never pronounce, Fjord, whatever. The professor says, if there's contradiction, check your premise, right? There can't be contradictions. In confusion, you can make a conclusion. If you're lacking information, I say it all the time, we're only as good as the information you have. If all you have is bad information because information has been silenced, you can't make a conclusion. You can't figure out where autism is coming from if you're not allowed to question the vaccines, if you're not allowed to question over-the-counter drugs like Tylenol. Aren't they safe for everybody? I mean, we've been smoking cigarettes for everybody. Aren't they great? Well, not when you started adding chemicals to it. You know what I mean? You can question. You can question anything. There's a maxim of law that says through inquiry, we will know the truth of all things, right? You have to ask questions. If something has to be silenced, if someone's question is not merited and can't have an actual response, right, then you're in the midst of a PSYOP. It doesn't matter what the source is. Government is notorious for it. Take our authority, our bona fides. We said so. Doesn't work that way. Judge, does the record reflect that answers to my questions like you just have to do not work for me anymore? I said that to a federal district judge. I expect my questions to be answered. In confusion, I have to make a conclusion. I have to take in all that information. All right, guys, we are going to jump over to the private side. For those of you that already have Rumble Premium, you'll be over there. We are going to be talking about Democrat poll numbers coming up for midterms. Bad news bears for the Democrats. We are going to be hearing from Hakeem Jeffries again and his concern about his threats about what's going to happen when Democrats